All right. Hey, folks. So today's going to be a very sort of open, candid talk about a question that I got yesterday on the video that I did. And it was a very good question to do with GPP and work capacity from one of my regular viewers called Bruno. So firstly, thanks for making it onto my channel. If you have any questions or comments, pop them down below. And if you'd like to work with me on your own strength and physique goals, there's a link in the description. So firstly, let's have a look at the quote, and then I want to just have an open and honest talk with you guys of what I've seen from my experience of training people to get from beginner to intermediate and intermediate to advanced, and just from what I've seen of lifters over the years and where people tend to struggle. I've had the benefit of lifting and being in the lifting scene for over 20 years now. So as part of that, I've trained people, but also I've come up with lifters. Some of the guys who have dropped out, others who have carried on lifting, and I've kind of seen where they've come unstuck. So that gives me a fairly good overview, and that's kind of what I want to share with you, hopefully to give you guys some clues to success. So let's have a look at what Bruno said. So I only asked because it's something I'm particularly interested in at the moment. I'm studying topics like work capacity and GPP because I feel that whenever I try to get stronger, I get stronger, but at some expense. I tend to increase my rest periods and kind of obviously do less and less volume. This because it tends to entail less volume. And because I increase rest periods, workouts tend to get longer and longer. So I think so far he's describing a fairly common problem, right? Guys who want to get stronger, essentially what happens is they end up placing all their eggs in that one basket, which is to get the most out of every set. What falls out of their arse is their work capacity. Yeah, their conditioning and their work capacity completely falls out of their arse. So it's British phrase, which means that it goes down, right? So their work capacity and GPP just goes to hell because all they're doing is they're really focused on that one or two or three top sets of strength work, and they rest longer and longer and longer to get to that. And that's why you get the memes of these powerlifters, you know, on like Instagram and stuff, where how many sets have you got left, and the powerlifter's being dragged away from the squat rack, you know, because he's got like 3 sets to go. He's going to be done in an hour. So yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what happens. As I see quite a lot is guys tend to remain small because in the end, what happens is their level of volume just completely bottoms out because they're just not doing enough work to stimulate continued strength increases, but they're chasing those extra pounds by the wrong ways. You're chasing the extra pounds by increasing your rest periods. You're chasing the extra pounds by getting rid of all their extra work. So in effect, you have a sort of a peaking effect. You know how powerlifters peak for a competition? They reduce, well, some of them do. They reduce all the rest of the work associated with the powerlift. They just do the powerlift. So you temporarily get a peaking effect where all the recovery in your body is channeled towards those 3 lifts. So they do that, but they think that's actual training. But I mean, it's a very common mistake that, let's say a guy will have a balanced routine where he's doing 10 to 20 sets per muscle group, then he just really chasing the strength on a squat, bench and deadlift. He'll start dropping everything out, and his squat, bench and deadlift will start to go up. He might even increase the frequency on his squat, bench and deadlift, and so the lifts will start to go up. But eventually, because he's just not able to do enough work, his work capacity will go down, his level of conditioning will go down, his what Louis Simmons might call general physical preparedness, specific physical preparedness will go down while he's peaking his strength. What happens often is people get out of shape, then they get injured, and then they get stagnated. And you know, if you're young, maybe you don't get injured, maybe you just stagnate, or maybe you get ill every now and again. But it's a surprisingly common scenario. And this might not happen week in, week out, but it might happen every 6 months or so. Just when you think something's going well, life will get in the way. But the reality is your training was just doomed from the start. But you know, you think it's life, but actually your training's just set up, and it's set up poorly. Let's go back to what Bruno is saying, because I really like this from Bruno, because it describes what a lot of people are doing and what a lot of people are doing wrong. Looking back now, I kind of see myself going through cycles and cycles of this problem. Watching your videos has been great though. I was flirting with the idea of trying to put together something after your tips. But then as I thought more about it, I came to the conclusion that what I'm trying to piece is probably a wizard program without the guessing and the errors. There would be a heavy day, there would be medium day, a light day, etc., etc. So yeah. And he's basically asking, would I recommend the wizard program? Firstly, I would recommend a wizard program because it's a really good, well-written program. But in terms of, I guess, where I see people, so I think Bruno's basically, he's hit that sort of intermediate plateau and he needs something extra now to push forward. Now, my wizard program is undulating periodization, kind of mixed with block periodization. So it's both together. So let's look at the similarities, because with the way that I implement my wizard program and the way that I implement my conjugate programs, there are a lot of similarities there. So I believe work capacity is huge. Something that I've seen over the course of the years is guys who consistently have a good degree of work capacity, they tend to continue to make progress. Some of the strongest lifters that I know tend to be absolute workhorses in the gym. Now, I will say work capacity and cardiovascular fitness are very different things. I'm not as certain that cardiovascular fitness is that necessary for, like, certainly elite levels of cardiovascular fitness aren't that necessary for powerlifting. Cardiovascular fitness is like the ability to just do a lot of like lifts, for example. But I do think work capacity is necessary. Work capacity is definitely it's how much your muscles can output. That's different from the strength and the conditioning of your heart. So I think cardiovascular work is slightly different to work capacity. I think work capacity is something which every really good lifter that I've seen tends to have a lot of. Every very, very strong lifter that I know can just go and go and go and go and just all hour. And it's just what I've seen. So I think work capacity and GPP are definitely part of that. I think a good base of cardiovascular conditioning can support that. And most of my clients do some sort of cardiovascular conditioning because I think it's important to allow them to not get gassed out while they're increasing their work capacity. So there is that. I think they're probably connected. So yeah, if we look at how I would solve it via an undulating approach versus a conjugate approach, there are similarities. So firstly, in both routines, I think over time volume should go up, like definitely. I completely believe that. And for those of you who've bought my wizard program, you'll know that there are chapters in that, the sections within that, on how to expand the routine when you've adapted to the amount of work, because I think ultimately more and more work is vital. So that would be the same with conjugate programming. More and more work, I think, is important over time. And at the most elite levels, I think Louis said that his top lifters do something like, I don't know, it's like 8 or 16 sessions. Yeah, 16 sessions or whatever it is per week, which is an insane amount because it's 4 main sessions along with at least 4 more smaller sessions and then maybe more across the week. So I think conditioning is a huge factor. Being prepared for the efforts in the gym is definitely a big thing. The wizard accomplishes that via increasing the amount of work on the particular days. Also with the variety of reps across the week. You have heavy days, medium days, light days. Because of the variety, you can do more volume. Like it's harder to max out your volume when you're doing everything just as 5s and 3s. If you're doing a wide variety of work, like 10s, 15s, that kind of stuff just isn't as taxing. So you can do more volume. And it's also a high degree of variety in terms of exercise selection as well. Same with conjugate. You're generally varying things a hell of a lot. So maybe every week or every 3 weeks, certainly, you're varying exercises quite considerably if you're doing it right. That's the whole idea behind conjugate. And what a lot of people don't really seem to connect is the high degree of variety actually allows you to do more volume. So it's one of the big pros of doing lots of variety, allows you to do more work, and more work supports the work capacity, supports the conditioning, which helps you get stronger. So my versions both of both the undulating and the conjugate solve the same problem in 2 different ways. And as I said before, I'm not married to any one approach. I just use whatever's appropriate for the client. So whether it's conjugate, whether it's wizard, whatever it is. So that's the first problem. The second problem is the actual degree of variety in the week. So I think for a natural, there should be heavy work in the week, as well as the regular, 5s, 8s, 10s, whatever. So again, we have heavy days in the wizard routine, and we also in the conjugate, inherent in that, you have the max effort method. So there are similarities with how I set up conjugate and undulating, because you're trying to solve the same problem. Like the human body still requires the same type of stress. Now, how you arrange the stress is undulating versus conjugate. Like it's still a step up from doing linear for the most part. So that's kind of, I think you need heavy work, so that somewhat solves that problem. I also think you need work which is a lot lighter. So you need your 15s, you need your 20s, you need your 25s. I think you need that work for joint health, joint integrity, and just strengthening your ligaments over time so that you're prepared to do and recovering from the heavy work during the course of the week. So again, the wizard program does that with light days, which is very sort of specific whole body GPP. Conjugate does that with a lot of high repetition work, prehab, a lot of GPP work. So it's the same human body, but you're solving problems in a different way. I guess where I would warn you guys is if you see a program which doesn't attempt to address those problems, that's where your red flags should start to show. It's like I did a comparison of mine and Alpha Destiny's approaches to training. So his naturally enhanced and sort of my wizard routine and my tactician program. What I really like about Alex's work is that he attempts to solve all the same problems that I attempt to solve. That's how I know he's aware of what he's doing. Like he is capable of training to an elite level, as he's demonstrated. But he knows what to look out for. He knows the body needs the heavy work, the lighter work, the prehab work, the GPP. He knows the body needs all that. He just does it in a different way, in like a conjugate way. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I really like him. I think he has great content because of that. I think the fact he's aware of those problems makes him a good coach, in my opinion. So yeah, so sort of to kind of bottom line this, I think work capacity and GPP are crucial. I think you should be looking at doing more and more work over time, like a long period of time. And I think a high degree of variety is very, very useful. 3-week blocks, 4-week blocks, things like that tend to be very useful. All of these things are things which you need to focus more on once you start reaching the intermediate plateau to break out of it to the advanced stages. You have to be physically prepared to bench 3 plates, squat 4 plates, deadlift 5 plates, and more than that. If you're not prepared to do that, if you're not readying your body to do that with taking care of all these facets, then what's going to happen is once you get into that wall of skill, you'll pound into that wall, you'll get sick, you'll get injured, you'll stagnate. So yeah, hopefully that was useful. Just a very sort of candid talk, a bit about the differences between beginner routines and intermediate advanced routines and how to ready your body to be advanced. And I think if you can put into place some simple things, you'll start to get the confidence to say, I can do this. And part of that's part of the battle. So hopefully that was kind of helpful just to get you thinking on this nice Friday. Have a great weekend, folks. I'll speak to you in the next one.